Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm going to be critiquing my viewers' art. I get many comments and messages from many of you asking me to take a look at your art and provide feedback, so I thought you all might like it if I do another video like this. I've done critiquing videos in the past, and for those ones I would fully draw over the pictures and illustrate my corrections. However, this time around I'm doing things a bit differently to make it so I have more time in this video to go over more art. I won't be fully drawing over the art. I will be pointing things out with a red pen and kind of illustrate what I mean. And I may draw over some of them, but yeah, I won't be like fully drawing over like in the past, I think. I don't totally know. I haven't fully planned out this video. But before we jump into the video, I would like to introduce you to a great tool that can help you create videos for your social media. It is HitPaw Screen Recorder. If you want to make content for your social media, a screen recorder is very important. And the HitPaw Screen Recorder can do all kinds of things to help you create more content. It can record your screen, record games, it can even record your screen and yourself at the same time. You can create any video based on what you're an expert in, such as drawing, gameplay, tutorial, and so on. What I like most is that you can use your iPhone or your iPad as a webcam to record yourself or anything outside the computer. This is a great substitute for a webcam if you do not own one. You only need to click on Record Device, select iPhone or iPad, connect your computer and Apple device with the same Wi-Fi. Then open the control center on your iPhone or iPad, tap Screen Mirroring, and choose HitPaw Screen Recorder. Now we can see what my iPad is capturing in the software. What's really cool is that you can record the screen and iPad camera at the same time. You only need to click Record Screen, select the area you want to record, choose iPhone/iPad in the drop-down list, then follow the pop-up window to mirror your Apple device to your computer. Now you can use your iPhone or iPad as the camera to record yourself at the same time as recording the screen. If you want to try HitPaw Screen Recorder yourself, you can use this code to get 30% off your purchase. There are links in the description and pinned comment. Okay, now let's jump into the video. So the character in this picture is very cute and I like her little dragon friend. So there are two things that stood out to me. The first being the tails. So they kind of look like they're coming out of her bottom, and this can feel kind of off or not quite right. When I see animal characters, a lot of times the tails are drawn kind of coming off the spine, a little above where the bum is, so I'd recommend moving them up a bit and more towards the center of the back. The second thing I noticed is that the neck is placed very close to the front of the head. I would personally have the neck be a bit further back on the head. When characters have large heads and small necks, I totally understand it can be confusing to know where to place the neck. One thing that can help is to think about how the spine needs to connect to the base of the skull. I try to keep that in mind when placing the neck and the head together. But yeah, when your characters have big heads, it can be a little bit tricky. In this case, the neck felt a little bit too forward. But overall, the picture is really cute and I like the character's design. The person that submitted this picture wanted me to give them advice for shading hair. I can see that you like to use the airbrush tool for shading. I also like to use the airbrush tool and use it for pretty much all of my shading. However, I changed the settings of the airbrush so that it has variation. So when shading hair or most things, you often want a mixture of shading that is soft and hard. In your case, all the shading is soft, and this can make things feel like a bit muddy or like the texture of the item is a bit off. You seem to prefer soft shading, so I'll show you how I would shade hair if I was going for a soft, simple look. So I start by applying soft gradients. I apply a light one to the top and a darker one to the bottom. I have my brush set to the softest setting for this. Now I'm going to add some shadows with a little more of an edge. Like I mentioned, it's good to have variety in soft and hard shadows. I make my airbrush have a harder edge by adjusting this setting. As you can see, I'm applying the shading and erasing what I don't need. I use my airbrush as an eraser as well by setting it to the transparent color. I often like to do this because then my eraser is the same as what I'm shading with and they have the same texture, and it just makes things overall a little bit easier. So to make the hair shiny, I'm going to make my brush really soft and apply a light color in the middle. I'm also going to apply some around the edges. that have a little bit more of an edge to them. Lastly, I changed the line art color to make it feel even softer. So yeah, that's how I would apply shading for a soft, simple look. My usual hair shading style is pretty different from this, but I thought I would demonstrate this kind of shading style since it'd be more useful for your style of coloring. So yeah, I hope that helps. The character you drew is really cute, and I like her outfit. I also like how you shade the eyes, it's really neat. One thing I wanted to touch on is that we want to keep the form of the body in mind, even when it's being hidden by clothes. So here on the right we have the arm and the puff sleeve. If I were to extend the lines of her arm, they don't really line up with the sleeve. You can see it's kind of coming out of the sleeve. So to make it so the arm would line up with the sleeve, I would change the angle a little bit. The same concept applies to this hand over here. The anatomy of the arm and wrist is being hidden under the glove, and the connecting between the arm, wrist, and hand is a bit unnatural. It's very curving. If I were to draw an arm in a position like this one, I would make the elbow more forward, and this would allow the wrist to come up towards the face and it wouldn't need to bend as much. So yeah, keeping the form of the body in mind as you're drawing the clothes is really helpful. This picture here is very nice. I love the warm lighting and how you captured the shiny texture of the, I don't know what to call them, but they look really nice. So something I wanted to point out is that it can be good to consider how objects on the character may affect the lighting. So in this case, his shirt collar would be blocking the light. Your light source seems to be coming from the lower left, and the collar would block the light and we would not get highlights within the shirt. The same goes for the sleeve down here. It would block some of the light from going on the forearm, and it would not extend all the way up to the sleeve. Lastly, I feel like things right here are a little blown out in this area, if that's the right word. I feel like the hair and skin should be different values, especially because his hair is so much darker than his skin. It feels a little bit off having them be the exact same value. You could have it be very light around the edges, but maybe closer to the face have the value get a bit darker. I very quickly painted in some colors as an example, but overall the picture is really nice. Good job. For this picture, I love how expressive the pose is. I feel like it really shows the character's personality. I also think it's great that you didn't shy away from drawing the hands, but I did want to mention something about the right hand. You kind of have the middle finger and pointer finger bending in opposite directions. A lot of times the middle and pointer like to kind of stick together and point in the same direction. And if they do point in different directions, they are pointing towards the inside of the palm and not the outside of the palm. I kept trying to mimic the pose in the picture and I couldn't get my ring finger and pointer finger to point in different directions like you drew. But overall, I feel like you did a really nice job. Keep up with drawing those hands. They can be very tricky. This picture is very adorable. I love the soft color choices and your style is super cute. One thing I wanted to note on is the mouth. It can be a stylistic choice to have it be filled in with all pink. This is a common thing in anime, especially for very stylized styles. However, in this case, I feel like having the mouth be filled in with only pink feels a little out of place. You could add a little bit of teeth or indicate the shape of the tongue. Also, it might be nice to add some kind of highlight to the eye. Adding even the littlest of a white highlight can really bring life to the eyes. Of course, this is all personal preference. I just thought I'd bring it up as something for you to consider. Overall, I really love this picture. It's super cute. So I saw this picture on Twitter while I was on my phone, and when looking at the picture on my phone, I couldn't really tell the difference between the background and the darker colors of the character. It looked like all the bright colors were kind of floating there, and I couldn't tell they were connected in any way. So that's something I wanted to talk about, is that it can be good to look at your picture on a smaller scale, zoom out or take a step back and see if your picture is still readable even when it's smaller, because so often people are looking at art on their phone and it's not super big. A way to make your art more readable is to think about values. Values are how dark or how light the colors get. To check your values, make your picture black and white and see if there's a good amount of difference between the grays. In this case, all of the grays are pretty similar. I would recommend making the values different, like maybe make the background brighter or maybe make the character's outfit brighter. For this picture, I really admire how you take the time to detail the hair. I do want to give you some tips for the details that can maybe help enhance them. The first tip is to make sure your details are flowing in the same direction as the hair. You have the line of the hair curving like this, but then the details are going like this. The details should be flowing with the hair, so they should go in the same direction. Also, you kind of have all the details flowing up towards the top of the head. I can see that you have the hair parted here, so the hair should be flowing from this point and not the top of the head. So I'll draw over a portion of the bangs and kind of demonstrate what I mean. So I now have the shape of the bangs. I'll add some darker hair strand details, and when adding these details, I make sure to have them flow with the direction of the hair. When doing this, I turn and flip my canvas to different positions to best match the curve of my wrist, so it's easier for me to draw the lines. For your hair details, you use very tiny lines, and you can totally do that if you want. In my case, I tend to simplify things a bit more and use larger shapes. It's just a personal preference. You can do what you would like to do. The main thing I want you to keep in mind is having the lines flow with the hair. Also, it might seem like I'm not having these lines flow with the hair right here, but this batch of hair was being tucked under another bit of hair. So yeah, that's why they're flowing like this. For the highlights of the hair, I drew a bunch of lines, set the layer to add glow, and lowered the opacity. For the finishing touches, I faded things out with a soft eraser and added some gradients. So as you can see, I have all of my lines flowing with the hair and flowing back towards the hair part. So yeah, I hope these tips were helpful. This picture is super cute and I really love your color choices. One thing I wanted to mention is that it feels like we should be able to see her ear right here. If I were to follow the line of her jaw and add an ear, I feel like it would peek out a little bit. Also, when drawing hair into a ponytail, it's good to keep the shape of the skull in mind. I do love how much volume her hair has, but I feel like maybe it should follow a little closer to the shape of the skull. But overall, the picture is really nice. The person that submitted this picture wanted help with anatomy. I really like the aesthetic of the character. I feel like it's really cute and I like the colors you chose. When it comes to anatomy, two major things stuck out to me. The first being the hands. The left hand is nicely drawn, however it is backwards. The thumb is on the wrong side. It should be towards the torso. I remember when I was young, I would have a hard time remembering which way to draw the hands. I definitely recommend using yourself as a reference to help you get the hand position correct and not accidentally draw the hand flipped. The right hand is facing the correct direction, however it feels like it's coming up a little too much or bending too much. In order for us to see this much of the palm of the hand, the forearm would have to be coming towards us more or pointing at us more. Here's a quickly drawn example of what I mean. Lastly, the lower body feels a bit small in comparison with her upper body. I would recommend making the hip area larger. It's a bit short. Also, the legs need to be longer. If you want to know a general way of deciding how long to make the legs, the lower body or area below the pelvis should be the same length as the upper body. This of course can vary with stylization and some people have different proportions, but for a general way to calculate it, this can be a good way to go about it. So yeah, I hope that helps a bit. Learning body proportions can be really tricky and I'm still learning about it myself. Like I said, I really like your character. The aesthetic is really cute and I really like the colors. For this picture, I feel like you did a very nice job drawing Animan. I hope that's how you say his name. I love playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's so much fun. So I do want to talk a bit about the body. So the first thing is that the head and neck feel off center. If I draw over his shoulders, we can see the kind of center point is around where you drew the line for the pec muscle. So I'm going to move the head and neck closer to that point instead of being shifted to the left. The second thing I want to point out is that the left shoulder is much shorter than the right shoulder. This should kind of be the other way around. I'm going to use the liquefy tool to change the shoulders a little bit and make the right shoulder not as long. So here is before and here is after. Things now feel a little bit more in proportion and like he is turned in 3/4 view. So I hope that helps a bit. I really like how you draw the face and the eyes are very nice. One thing I wanted to talk about is leaving enough room for the shoulder joints. So overall, the width of the shoulders looks good. However, the area within that feels a bit off, mostly because the torso is a bit too wide and it's making it so there's not much room for the arms. So I'm going to select the torso and transform it to make it less wide, and then I'll paint in the arms. I also want to point out that in the original, the line that indicates the armpit goes very high up. And once again, we want to leave enough room for the shoulders, so I'm going to lower the line that indicates the armpit. So here's before and here's after. Now the arms have a bit more room. This last picture I'll be talking about I think is very neat. I like how you have the flame reflecting in the eye, but one thing I think you could have done to really make things pop is to apply some more of the orange fire lighting onto the character. So the flame is on the left, so a lot of the left area could get some orange lighting on it. You have a blue light coming from behind, and it seems like you used the same blue light for these areas. But I'm going to make these areas orange since the flame would be letting off some warm light. I love to use different colored light sources in my art. It can make things really interesting. So if you have an illustration with different light sources, I recommend taking advantage of them because they can make things really pop. For applying the highlights, I use a mixture of applying harder edged highlights and some softer gradients to help things fade together. I like to apply the lighting super strong, and then I'll dial it down by turning down the opacity so it's not super overpowering. So the highlights I added are okay, but I feel like something's kind of missing. I wanted the colors around the flame to feel a bit warmer. And I'll show you an easy way of how I go about doing this. So many programs have gradient maps. A gradient map applies colors depending on how light or dark the values are. I applied this gradient map here to the picture. I chose this one because it has a bunch of warm colors. After applying the gradient, I erase it everywhere that I don't want it and leave it kind of just around the flame. I'm using the soft air brush to do this. This makes the colors around the flame feel much warmer and gives them a nice contrast to the rest of the colors. So here's before and here's after. Now the fire lighting feels like it's really interacting with the rest of the picture instead of being its own thing. So I hope that helps. So those are all the critiques for this video. Thank you all so much to all of you that submitted your art. I hope my tips were helpful to the people that had their art featured in this video. And I also hope it was helpful to you. If you'd like me to do this again in the future, please let me know down in the comments. Before we end, I'd like to thank my super amazing, wonderful patrons for supporting my work and what I do. It means so much to me. And thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!